The body of the Constitution only protects a single right, the right to file for writ of habeas corpus, which we learned about in our discussion of the Constitution. However, the Anti-Federalists argued that not protecting our rights would potentially lead to a tyrannical government. So ultimately, a Bill of Rights was proposed, and the first 10 amendments to the Constitution protect these rights. Now, the first 5 rights protected by the amendments to the Constitution are all contained in the First Amendment. And these 5 rights, the right to freedom of religion, to freedom of speech, free press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances, are all political rights. You'll notice they're all negative rights, sometimes known as liberties or freedoms. They prevent the government from doing something. The government is not allowed to infringe on our right to free speech, but that doesn't mean they have to help us speak, right? They don't have to give us anything, but they can't stop us either. So that's why it's a negative right. It prevents government action. Now, these 5 rights are protected first because they are essential for preventing tyranny. If you want to stop a tyrannical government, you've got to be able to speak about it and say, hey, I think this government is being tyrannical. You've got to have a free press who's able to write about the government and report on the government and say, look at these tyrannical things the government is doing. You've got to be able to assemble, get together in groups to discuss the government, to potentially, as the Continental Congress did, to overthrow the government, and certainly to protest the government. You've also got to be able to petition the government, right? To give the government basically a piece of paper. I mean, we don't use paper anymore, but this is the idea. And that says, hey, look, a whole bunch of people think that you need to change what you're doing with this, right? To sign and give in a petition to tell the government you're doing this wrong. You are becoming tyrannical, for example. So these 4 freedoms, speech, press, assembly, and petition, all seem pretty clearly related to political rights. But how's religion fit in? Well, religion really fits in because before America was America, we were part of Britain. And Britain, of course, is one of the Western European nations. Now, in Western Europe, there had been a tradition of the divine right of kings, which basically said that the head of state was divinely chosen. God had somehow anointed or preordained this person, and this family line would rule. Now, this meant that questioning the king was kind of like questioning God. So already we can see how that sort of mixes freedom of religion and freedom from tyranny into sort of a weird relationship there. Now, in England, it got even weirder because King Henry VIII decided to create his own church. He said, basically, if I'm divinely chosen, why do I have to listen to the Pope? What makes him so much better than me? What makes him more religious, more pious than me? So Henry VIII ultimately created his own church based on that reasoning, but mostly so that he could divorce his first wife. Now, this meant that if you said that the king was doing something wrong, you were saying that not only the head of state, but also the head of the church was doing something wrong. So any sort of resistance to the king was, in essence, a religious statement as well. And importantly, resisting that national religion, that Church of England, or Anglican Church as it's sometimes called, resisting that could be seen as treasonous, right? Saying at that time, I'm Catholic, not Anglican, could be seen as not just a religious statement, but a political one. And again, that could be considered treason. So it allowed a tyrannical government to really use religion as a tool for keeping dissent to a minimum. So we can see that all 5 of these freedoms, or rights, again, negative rights, all 5 of these are, in a way, political freedoms to help stop a government from becoming tyrannical.